Hi, third graders. Remember last time when we were together, you learned about area and finding the area of a rectangle. The area is the number of square units on the inside, right? So we practiced that a little bit yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about another area, I guess, multiplication type, but we're going to talk about something called properties. Okay, properties of multiplication. Properties just is a fancy math word for rules. There are a lot of rules in multiplication, and we're going to look at one today. And I also put a poster on Google Classroom. It's on the resources for math, so you can go and look at that. But we're going to work on today one thing called the distributive property. If you think of the word distributive, I hear distribute. When I distribute something, I pass it out or I separate things. So we worked on it a little bit yesterday. You didn't even know it. But on page 55, remember when we were separating this one rectangle into two smaller ones? We had a shaded one and one that was not shaded. That's kind of what that distributive property is. It's taking one big shape, splitting it apart into some more manageable pieces, and then kind of adding that information together to find the total of the really big shape. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. You can turn to page 56 in your math journal. Okay, I'm going to move this back a little bit, try to get out of that sun. Inside this big blue box is always a definition or a little bit of a lesson. Remember, our vocabulary is called the distributive property. And that's just saying that this large rectangle can be divided into two small ones so that we can find the area of the big one. So we can find area of the two small ones. That will tell us then the area of the really big rectangle when we add them together. Okay. And it's highlighted here, the distributive property, and it kind of shows you how. Here's the big rectangle. It's 7 by 3, and they're showing us how they broke it into two small rectangles, and they added those together. All right, so let's just do a couple of these together. We'll revisit the distributive property a little bit later in third grade. This is just kind of our first introduction, and it is a little bit tricky. So don't feel like if you're confused, that's okay. If you're like, what is going on? I don't understand this. That's okay. We're just kind of touching on it now. And like I said, we will revisit it later in third grade. But it's a strategy to use when you've got a really big shape and you need to find the area. You can take it and break it apart into smaller shapes. So maybe even 3 or 4 smaller shapes, and then add all of those products together. All right. So let's look at number 7. It says to find the area of the large rectangle by finding the area of the two small rectangles and adding them. So they've already shaded these for us. One of them is yellow. Okay, the other one is white. Here on the left side, they have the number 6. This is the factor 6 because there are 6 rows. There are 3 in each row. But they broke it apart, and they broke it into 5 and 1 because we know our 5s really well. We can multiply by 5s really well. So we're going to use what we know, okay, to do that. So let's find that area. Let's do the yellow rectangle first. I see 5 rows and 3 in each row. Okay, and then I'm going to add to that the white part. I see 1 row and 3 in each row. Okay, so we're going to try to figure that out. I know that 5 times 3 is 15. I'll write that down here. And I'm going to add that product to this area. 1 times 3, that's just 3. When I add those together, I'm going to get 18. So I'm going to put 18 up here as well. Okay. So let's double check. This whole shape is 6 and 3. So let's write down 6 rows of 3. Remember, I can count by 6 3 times. I can count by 3 6 times. Let's just count and see what we get. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. That my one big rectangle is 18 square units. I had 2 smaller rectangles, but when I added them together, I also got 18 square units. So we want to make sure we label those. Okay, and remember, that's called the distributive property. That's where we break things apart and make them more manageable. So taking one large shape and breaking it up into things that we know. Up here, they picked 5 and 2 because we know our 5s really well. So think about that when you're working on your own homework or project. Let's practice some multiplication facts. 5 times 4, 5 groups of 4. Remember, you can flip-flop those factors, you get the same product. So you could do 5 4 times, or you could do the number 4 5 times. I hope you got 20. How about 2 groups of 4? That's a double. 4 plus 4 more. That would be 8. Ooh, 7 groups of 4. I don't know my 4s yet. 7 groups of 4. Or I could do 4 groups of 7. Okay, I know my doubles pretty well. 7 and 7 is 14. Here's another double. I bet I could add those together. 14 plus 14 more is going to give me 28. So see how knowing those doubles can really help you. Remember, this is a brand new rule. There are like 5 multiplication rules that we're going to learn about. This is just the first one, but just think of it as a strategy. It's a way for you to take something that seems really hard and big and taking it into some smaller, more manageable pieces. Okay, we're kind of deconstructing it. We're pulling it apart. I know a lot of you like to build with Legos. Think of these as Legos, right? We've got one big tower, or we could have 2 small towers that we put together. So think of it in those terms. Remember, a property in math is just a rule. There are a lot of them in multiplication, 5 of them that we're going to learn about. This is just the first one. But remember I said we'll revisit what the distributive property is. The idea is that you can use it to find the area, right? The amount on the inside. You can find the area of a rectangle by using that distributive property, knowing that you can break it apart.